One of the trends within sustainable leadership is diversity and inclusion. The reason why is that we know that homogeneous teams perform worse than heterogeneous teams. We also know that heterogeneous teams are more difficult and cumbersome to lead. I usually say it demands leadership, not just management. When we talk about diversity and inclusion, the difference here is very important. Diversity is what we can count, what we can measure. It is representation. It is the way that your team is put together. Inclusion is the way that you make this team work. To be an inclusive leader, you need knowledge about the bias and stereotypes that marginalized people they face in the organizations. We distinguish between two types of bias: explicit and implicit unconscious biases. The explicit ones are easy, so to speak, because these are the ones that your employees are voicing. They're explicit. The implicit and unconscious ones are really difficult to manage. We need both knowledge about how these biases work. We need conviction over the consequences that they will have for our organizations. And we also need actions, concrete actions that are developed in the context that can change status quo. So inclusive leadership demands continuous training in order to change behavior. We know that bias awareness training does not work alone, because that only speaks to our rationality. It has to speak to our hearts, and it also has to result in concrete actions. So inclusive leadership is not a state, an endpoint. It requires continuous training and continuous reflexivity. Because per definition, unconscious bias is unconscious, which means it is not enough just to know the biases that I might have. I also need to be prepared for the ones that I don't know I have yet. So inclusive leadership is key to creating sustainable and responsible organizational cultures.